Miss LaShasta Bell of I Choose Me, and she comes in her own way. Let's give her a hand. Also, continue to send those hearts up, purple hearts, ladies.
Good morning. Good morning. I just want to start with let's all take a breath. Nice and slow in, hold it for a few seconds, and then out. We've received so much great information so far. And I don't know about you guys, but I felt like, oh, I just need to take a couple breaths because I was starting to feel like, okay, this is getting to be a lot. And we're living in a world right now where it's very easy to feel overwhelmed because there's this underlining overtone that's taking place. Before I jump all the way in, I want to be sure to add that when we were talking about routine checkups, get your mental health checked. Make sure you include that as you are going throughout the year and going to the dentist and going to the doctor and breast exams. Do not forget to address your mental health because let's just be honest. If you're not in your right mind, some other things just really won't matter. So I know that the theme is rooted in hope. But before I even go to the rooted in hope, I want us to take a moment to identify what we are rooted in. Because here's the thing. Research says that from ages 0 to 3 is where things really pop off in our lives. It helps establish who we are and who we are not, how we will be in relationship, when will we be in relationship, pretty much for the rest of our lives. Now, do we learn other things along the way? Absolutely, without a doubt. But if we do not take a moment to identify where our roots are, then we don't know what our next steps are. So when I looked up the word root, because whenever I speak, I want us all to be on one accord. I want us all to operate from the same place in the same definition. So when I decided to look up this word, here's some of what came up. Below the ground, support, basic cause, origin, source. I was like, that'll preach right there. And I'm no preacher. I'm not claiming that at all. But when it said below the ground, that's what we do not see. We do not see what's below the ground. And if we don't take time to be intentional about identifying what's below the ground, then we very well grow from an unwell place. The things that we feel like are our roots really should be uprooted. One of the examples given about with the medical is eating. That's something that we need to uproot. Some of us, that was our roots. Eat all the food on your plate. Clean your plate. And we did that for so long, for so many years, that literally what we were growing was unwell for our physical health. Because someone, our mom, our grandmother, or somebody's, maybe everybody, said we will not waste. And to not eat it all equaled waste. And then we pass that on to our kids. So then, essentially, we are grooming another generation with an obesity mindset. Because now, all of us, everyone's overeating. We sit back at the table, everybody top button unbuttoned. You know, that lean, like if I just lean, and I'm guilty. My uncle tells a story about how he made some greens for me in hot water cornbread. I'm from Louisiana. If you don't know what hot water cornbread, that's another story for another day. So he made some greens, and I went over on my lunchtime to eat, and I could eat that every single day. So I ate, and we chatted, and then next thing you know, I get up, and I'm like, he's like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm making some more room. He was like, you know you can take something to go. I said, oh, I plan to do that too. But right now, I want to have another serving. And that's gluttony. I sinned that day, I did. But it's a mindset that comes up around food and eating. Those are our roots. So when we talk about identifying, it's taking a moment in every single area. I can remember my son being about 4 or 5 years old. Well, he had a goal of learning to whistle by the time he was 5, right? We didn't plan it. This was just him. So he would practice and practice about whistling, wanting to whistle. And then he whistled in the house. And it's just something went up me to the tip of my head. And I'm like cringing. And I'm like, can you please not whistle in the house? And so my husband looked at me and was like, why that man can't whistle in his own house? And I had to pause because I did not have an answer. I had an emotional reaction to something that was rooted in me to not do, but in that moment, I had no answer as to the reason my son could not do it. When we talk about rooted and what's underground, we have to take a moment to identify, because this very thing is what connects us to our mental health and how we interact with people, how we interact with ourselves. So how that story ended, that man got the whistle in his house. And this woman got to deal with the unsettled feeling about whistling in the house. Fast forward 10 years later, if my kid whistle now, it's not as bad, but it's still something there. Roots run deep. And although I was intentional about digging up some of that, some is still there. So when we look at, okay, let's identify what's going on, what's holding us hostage. Because when we talk about being rooted in hope, you have to be hopeful to be rooted in hope. So some of us have to spend some time digging. And let me tell you, one of the themes that I have heard others say, and I experienced myself in 2020 with a pandemic, is you got to spend some time with yourself. You didn't have a choice, a lot of us. And many of us chose to, maybe around month 3 or 4, we was like, yeah, this ain't going nowhere. I may as well do some introspection. And many of us started to realize some of the ways we moved in life were rooted from an unhealthy place. We didn't know what else to do with ourselves. We started not to even like spending so much time, like, oh, I'm getting on my own nerves. Why I do that? That curiosity will take you places if you allow it. And so when we think about, okay, we've identified, now it's that evaluation piece. What stays and what goes? Because not everything should be thrown out. Not every root needs to be undug. But we clearly have to ask ourselves, what stays and what goes? So that we can make space for the roots to grow that we want to grow. Because that's where hope comes. When we can establish that these are the roots that I want, and I can be hopeful, and I can be excited, and I can anticipate their growth because I chose these roots. And in order to do that, you have to evaluate you. You have to be willing to get real about who you are and who you are not. I cannot tell you how many disputes I've had to put in on my street credit. Not my credit, but what the streets would say, what other people would say, what the person who knew me at 9 was saying, and now I'm not 9. Y'all like that, huh? I'm not 9. And some of those people were people who were really close to me, or so they thought. But at some point, they chose to stop looking at me and only go by what they knew me to be. And if we keep ourselves in that circle long enough, we'll start to believe what others tell us. We will start to believe that. So taking some time and doing some self-evaluation. I can tell you, in my evaluation, I realized, like, girl, you really got some bad anxiety. Yeah, I'm the anxiety treatment professional, but I'm not treating myself. I'm treating other people. But in that space and time where I really decided that, you know what, some of this I don't want anymore. I don't want to carry it. I don't want to hold on to it. I don't want it to be part of my root. So I spent a lot of time in therapy in 2020. Was I helpful in giving people therapy? Absolutely. But I just said, I'm done. Like, I'm getting ready to be 40. I turned 40 last year. It was so exciting. It would have been more exciting without a pandemic, but nonetheless, I was excited. And I know most of us women, we're not. We're not excited when 40 hits. There's this angst and this expectation of what I should be doing and who I should be. And I was just like, I'm 40 and I'm glad to be me. I'm glad that I'm able to realize some parts of me I don't want anymore. So I dug up some roots. I threw out some old beliefs because they were not mine. They were passed on, and people do the best they can with what they have. I'm going to just leave that right there. Because I decided I no longer wanted to spend time exploring the roots of my parentals. More so, I'm going to just be honest, my dad. I'm like, I cannot spend another moment trying to figure out why a man would walk away from his child, and then I'm a great child. Like, I have people out there in the streets bragging on me. That's not my dad. Why would you not? It took up too much space. It started to create roots that I did not want. And I saw it showing up in other relationships. So I just dug them up, installed some other ones. And my belief was, you know what? He did the best he could with what he has. He has trauma that he has not touched, but I'm not going to let his untouched trauma touch me. And I engaged in conversation with him for the first time in almost 20 years. I did so not because someone told me I should, not because I felt like I had to, because my new beliefs, my new roots, that was my way of watering them, to be in contact. So when we think about evaluating, we go through that process, we look at ourselves, and then the next thing is prioritizing. Taking time to prioritize your mental health, the things that you want to choose to believe in, the things that you want to release. No longer giving energy. Once you release it, it's gone. Once you dig that root up, once that belief is gone, let it go. Whatever the trauma is that happened, once you say, I'm good with it, don't retell the story. Retell the triumph of the story. That's where the hope is. That's where the roots are. That's where you get to water your roots, your beliefs that you choose to put in place. Because sometimes we'll get so comfortable with the trauma and the drama, we forget the victory. We don't get to that part of the story. People tap out. You know, attention spans are short these days. So if you start with the trauma and the drama and you spend the bulk of your time there, the victory is missed. The triumph is missed. And that's where being rooted in hope, that's what we should be, telling that part of the story. I'm not saying don't tell your testimony, that's what we call it, not to share your trauma. But you can share the trauma without the drama and the adjectives and adverbs and save those for the triumph. Save those for the victory. Because the more we share that part, the stronger our roots become. The roots that we chose to dig and make space to plant. So we call it in mental health, positive affirmations, positive self-talk. We call that refuting irrational thought patterns and replacing it with a positive reframe. It's the same being. We're all the same being, all the same person. Our mental health, our spirituality, our physical health, they're not a separate entity. It should be an ongoing, continuous flow. When we choose to look at being rooted in hope, we are choosing to praise God in all situations and circumstances. We're choosing to meditate on His word day and night. And meditation is one of the best things that you can do for yourself in 2021. Practicing mindfulness. If we go back to eating, if you mindfully eat, you'll eat almost half less of what you usually will. Trust me, I tried it. And you say, okay, LaShasta, what is mindfully eating? I'm glad you asked. It's AKA take your time with your food. Chew it all up. Do not engage with the fork or the spoon until everything in your mouth is gone. Chew more than 3 times. Savor the taste, the texture, the smell, the color. Engage all of your 5 senses in your eating process. And once you have completely chewed everything in your mouth and swallowed it, then you pick up the spoon or fork again and you go and you do it again. I know it sounds simple, but I'm just going to challenge everyone on your next meal, just try it out. It is very complicated. You will start to realize how quick we are with that spoon. I was like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to put this down. And I'm at chew number 3 and the spoon back in my hand. I'm like, no, put it down. Because we live in this sense of urgency, that everything is urgent. And now with pandemic, social injustices, election situations, it presses us more. It ignites our brain more that there is urgency, that there's a threat. Even more reason why we need to slow down. We are in control of that. So practicing that mindful eating, and please drop your comments when you do. I want to celebrate with you and probably laugh with you a little bit too, because it's a whole situation. But you will truly eat less, which now in one meal, you have addressed your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health. So when we think about like, I don't have time to get all these things in, you do though. Because each thing that you do should be rooted in your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health. Because we're all one being. There's no compartments. So let's start treating ourselves as one whole being. Let's start addressing our mental health, having the conversations around mental health. And when I say mental health, I'm not saying illness. I'm not saying disorder. We're not saying anyone is crazy. What I'm saying is how you are with yourself, how you are with others, how you see the world. That's mental health. And those are where the conversations should be, not how other people see the world. Girl, can you believe she da-da-da-da-da? And if my boss one more time, that's lots of energy with others' mental health and not enough energy with our mental health, which means you cannot identify the root, you cannot evaluate the root, and you cannot prioritize it because you're dealing and being busy with others' roots. So if we have any questions on mental health, I'll take those questions. Anxiety, depression, whatever it may be, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. Feel free to contact me on any social media platform. Wherever you can find me, send me a text because we really want to continue to decrease the stigma around Black and brown communities with mental health and increase the awareness, especially now more than any other time in our being. So I appreciate the time, and thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bell. We have someone who asked the question. They sent the question, and how do you sit down and start doing your mental health checklist today? How do you do it today? When they get out of this conference, don't start right after you sit down, but right after this conference, how do they do it today?
So I would suggest first doing a body scan. A body scan is just a method of going from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet and checking in with each part of your body to see where tension may be. A lot of us carry tension in our shoulders, some in our back. Y'all, I carry tension in my scalp. I did not know until my massage therapist was up there, and I'm like, what's that? And it's a whole tension situation. So first, identifying where the tension is in your body, and then speaking to that tension. Where did it come from? This tightness in my shoulder, whose name is on it? What is it? And a lot of times it'll be, okay, I've been thinking about the bills lately. I've been thinking about, having to go to work and possibly contracting COVID-19. And then start to just write your thoughts and feelings about that. That's a program. Many sessions per issue for free. Sit with someone. I had a client tell me the other day that, and this was an African-American male client, so I'm gonna let you guys know, we in there, we doing the work. We wanna see more of us doing the work, but it happens. He was like, sometimes it's just good for me to hear myself aloud. For what's in here to have a safe place where I know I'm not judged. You do not understand the value in having that safe place until you go check it out. So how you start? Body scan. Speak to the tension. Talk to it. Give it a label. Identify it. Evaluate it. Go to your mental health services. Look at your medical insurance. Identify a therapist. Or check with your employee assistance program. Right now, most insurance companies also, they're waiving copays for telehealth. So even if you don't have an employee assistance program, if you have your insurance, it's at no cost to you because the copay has been waived. And you can do it from the comforts of your home, the comforts of your car, the park, wherever it's a confidential space, but get started with that today. If you don't know what you're gonna talk about, just go to therapy and be like, I don't know what I wanna talk about, but I just know I need to talk. Trust me, from there, it will flow. Whatever it needs to come out will come out.